Hi, everybody. How is everybody doing? Welcome to Transgurus again. My God, we are growing like hell, and thanks everybody for following us and subscribing to us. I
Mhm.
thought that Raji would be here today, but apparently she's not, which is unfortunate. We have today a theme called freedom of thoughts, and Raj is here. Okay, she's coming. So
Oh,
she's joining. Freedom
oh, good.
of thoughts. Raji, are you joining? It's taking longer than usual. Anyway, who wants to go first?
Sure, I've been thinking about this. Uh, welcome everybody. It's good to have everyone here. Hi, Raji.
Hey,
Hi,
And we
Raji.
got a quorum, so we're going to make this short and sweet.
Yes.
Freedom, how I interpret freedom of thought is the ability to daydream. And daydreaming is when our subconscious connects to the ethers. And I'm in the gym, and in between sets, I kind of walk back and forth to cool off from my next set, and that's a type of meditation, and I connect to the ethers where all information is stored. And then I see folks on the machine, and they're in between their set, and everyone's staring at their phone. When we stare at the phone and we're scrolling, we're robbing ourselves of the ability to daydream. And daydreaming is another way to say freedom of thought, is that there is no thought. We relax our mind and allow information to pass through our subconscious. So our our deepest motivations, our deepest desires are all based and generated in our subconscious. And if we don't give our subconscious time to collect itself and or connect to the ethers where all the information stored as a vibration, we rob ourselves of potential.
Mm.
So freedom of thought. Keep that in mind when we're like even at a red light or in the shower. Allow your mind to wander. Disconnect your conscious from yourself, and allow your subconscious to just wander. And I was listening to a video the other day where the IT department at Google, all the brainstorm folks, uh, they let them go like walk in the woods and go to a picnic and stuff, and that's where the ideas are all generated. Not in front of the computer or in the design room. Same with corporate executives. More decisions are made on a golf course than in a boardroom. So this is going to be an interesting conversation. But daydream, dream, dream some more, because this is how you connect with the ethers.
Yeah.
Ella.
Yeah. Raj, sorry we started a little bit.
No, that's okay. Today has been a crazy day for me. So anyway, I'm glad I could make it. Hi, everybody.
So we're talking about freedom of thought. Um, Bobby, would you like to carry on?
Sure. I really appreciate the topic because it was a while back, and I was wondering like, what's holding me back? And I realized that I had created a prison in my own mind where I was in the prison, but I was also the guard of the prison too. And I was saying, oh my gosh, what an efficient prison system. It's one person does both jobs. And it's like, how does that happen? A few weeks ago, we did a show on self-talk, and that's very much how our prisons are made. And that is by the stuff that we tell ourselves. I mean, the negative stuff that we tell ourselves all the time. We escape the cage through a different type of self-talk. And I think it could be internalized transphobia or shame or, oh, I'll never belong. And, those kinds of things that we can tell ourselves and obsess and stay stuck in those places. And and they do. They really become a cage. And and we start feeling like, well, this is where I live, this is where I'm going to be. And it's like, how do how do how do we escape from those cages? And depending on how we grew up, it may there may be nothing to it, or it may take a whole lot of effort. I was listening to a young mother today talking about um, her transgender daughter and how the things they started seeing around the time they were 3 or 4 years old, and the things that were coming out of the child's mouth, and how all of a sudden they're having to confront the possibility, like, we might be having a transgender child here. And 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 so they're watching that, they're being cool, and they're just kind of watching this unfold, but it just keeps getting more and more pronounced, and they're learning more, educating themselves, and they become the really super supportive parents that so many of us wish we had. And so this kid was starting kindergarten and first grade, and they were living their truth already. And I was thinking, that's not the world I grew up in. But I was so happy. I was so happy for that kid. So for the ones of us that didn't grow up in a supportive environment, it's we hear the voices of all the people that tell us that, no, you can't live like that because of what you were assigned at birth. You have to live this way, not this way. And so we start fabricating all of these different rationales for why we will never be able to do this. And that's really sad. And so I'm thinking, well, what were the steps? How did I get out of that? And it is really self-talk. It's paying attention to your thinking. Um, in the education world, they call that metacognition, where you're thinking about your thinking. And that's really what it is. And so it's, wait, why am I feeling this shame? What is that? Where is that voice of shame coming from? And it's like, oh, that's my ex speaking to me from 20 years ago or something like that. Where did that voice come from? And oh, well, that was preacher so and so. That and you become aware of this negative self-talk. But then I think part of the thing is instead of beating yourself up, is becoming compassionate with yourself. Like, wait, why is that voice happening now? What is it trying to tell me? Is there something I should be afraid of? And then you start looking at all of the things, like, wait, what? Why am I hearing that message right now? It's negative. Where did it come from? And just that kind of awareness of your self-talk is a huge first step. And we kind of go from there. I think about prison movies and prison breakouts and things like that. Nobody breaks out of their prison like within the first 5 minutes. Well, maybe in some outrageous movies, but for the most part, something like the Shawshank Redemption or something like that. It's little by little that we look at the bars that we've created, and is, where did this come from? Why am I thinking this? What is it trying to tell me? And how do I quit living in the past fear or the future fear or the past trauma and the future, and just be present? And so I think it's a really important thing for us to be talking about, because I I I've run into so many people who are kind of trapped in a cage, and it's all created by their own thoughts. It's not real, really. It's a thought prison. So with
Absolutely.
that, now I'll pass it back to you, Alexa.
Thank you. I totally agree with you, by the way. I really liked your ideas. Raji, your turn, girl.
Wow, this is powerful stuff. And one of the amazing things about us human beings is that we have these amazing minds to be able to create. And we can either create things that we want to desire, or we can create things that we don't want and we don't desire. It works both ways. I know for myself, as an activist and all of the things that I'm involved in, I do require being online to an extent. And so what I find is it is easy sometimes to get, I call it the rabbit hole, get sucked in or sucked down the rabbit hole where you're seeing all this stuff online. And I have to like, in the moment, like remind myself, okay, back away from this. Like, I did what I had to do. I posted what I needed to post. I checked out a few things. And now give my energy, my thoughts, my time, all of that to maybe something a little more constructive. You know what I mean? Than going down that rabbit hole. Because, the thing about online, it can be really wonderful and positive, but then there's also the other side of it where there's a lot of negative things. And, you know, it just takes one video to pull you down the rabbit hole. And then you're like, cussing and like, oh, this world, what is this world coming to? And that whole thing. So, what I try to do every day is I try to start my day off with positive messages. And so usually like it's in the bathroom, like I'm taking a shower but I'm playing some sort of spiritual guru on my phone just to kind of get me into that zone, that zone. Because the thing about the power of our minds and our thoughts is that through imagination, through creativity, through dreaming, that's how we can manifest the things that we want. Because maybe your current world isn't the way you want it, and people will say, oh, get out of the clouds, or you're a dreamer, or it's all pipe dreams. But you can feed into like the reality of like the way something is that you don't like, and give energy to that. Or you can use your mind to imagine yourself in a better situation. And I've seen it in my life. It's powerful, it works. I can guarantee it works. If you use your imagination, if you dream, if you use your creativity in your mind to create what you want, you will see manifestation happen. And it's I'm a work in progress. I think we all are to an extent. And there's times, and this is another thing about our thoughts. Okay, so that kid that picked on you in 6th grade? He was a bully, and he beat you up, and listen. You can, if you don't watch yourself, and I'm talking to myself too, you can relive that over and over and over again, like it's happening in real time. You can do that. Like we can literally go back to that moment and feel the trauma and all of it like it's happening. And so it's almost like, okay, the person victimized you, and then you're allowing the person in that experience to victimize you over and over and over and over again. So that's where it's very important to really think about what you're thinking. Like give yourself a check, like, check in with yourself and say, wait a minute, where are my thoughts going? Like, what am I thinking? Because it's easy for us to be in our place. You're in the kitchen cooking, or you're doing whatever, and your thoughts will roam, and you'll go back 20, 30 years. Oh, when my father said this to me. Now, meanwhile, my dad's been gone 20 years. He passed away 20 years ago. And I'm still like, so my therapist said it best, I think, or one of the really amazing ways is that stuff doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't exist. We have the eternal now. Right now is where it exists, and we can use this moment to create our future. Ella?
Yep, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think this theme is particularly important, and I tell you why. Um, if you, I mean, I like very much travel and I like very much history. History is something which is always very important for me, and to learn from the past. And I have to tell you, freedom of thought is the basic of getting better. It's the basic of discovery. It's the basic of evolution. It's the basic of everything, because everything that happened in this earth started somewhere with a thought. So, it's just step by step. I mean, and look at the history of civilization. Although we can have a freedom of thought, some people did not have the freedom of action. And in those years where there was no freedom of action, it's when the earth actually had the least evolution. It's kind of got stuck. But when we had freedom of action and freedom of thought, everything came together. I mean, even in the old, and I'm talking about, the Roman Empire and everything, everybody thought, or everybody had this idea of what you think is what you get. And if you think positive, you get positive. If you think negative, well, that's another story. But freedom of thought is exactly that. Don't let yourself be caged by your own thought, because as in the idea of today's discussion, because if you get caught and closed in your own thoughts, wow, you cannot grow. Open your mind and open your mind to yourself too, because sometimes you just kind of block your own thoughts, which is the part of the jail. You block your own thoughts. You don't allow your thoughts to come forward, or you do something else. You don't trust your own thoughts. I think this is really the basis for all the autonomy that you have of yourself. And I have to tell you, when I was young, like many of us here, I was brought in a anti-trans and environment. We were not allowed to think like that. We were not allowed to do like that. It took me many years to get over that. But you know what? By opening myself, trust myself, and becoming, and transition, I actually opened many other doors too to myself. Not only the transition, but even sometimes my business ideas and my business. It opened a hell of a lot of things. So trust yourself. It is the foundation of freedom to listen to yourself and for freedom of thoughts. It's foundation for everything. So trust yourself. Trust your thinking, and trust it is so important. So who wants to go next?
No, we're talking about self-talk now. The most important conversation we ever have is when we have with ourselves.
Yeah.
And if there's this, there's that. If you can manifest if your thoughts can manifest your reality, that can be a blessing or it can be a curse. It's up to you. We have to control our thoughts. If we're going to to control our thoughts is to allow freedom of thought. And to establish a default positive way of thinking, you have to exercise that part of the brain. So consciously think about positive things, spin things. You see a car crash. Well, you can spin it in some way or another that it's good. So the idea is try to interpret all events as good.
Yeah,
and you'll be on your way.
absolutely. Raj, I know that you have to go, but you would like to have some other words.
Sure. Like I said, today's a crazy day, but I'm glad I was able to at least come on. I just want to say I like the whole thing of spinning things and also looking at things from maybe it's not even spinning. Some things it's spinning, but sometimes it's just looking at things from a different perspective than the negative one. Like I'll use this example real quick. A friend of mine passed away. He goes to my spiritual center, and he passed away. He was dealing with a sickness, cancer, and
Wow.
I was saying that his passing away could have been the thing he needed in order to heal. I didn't say this to everyone, but another friend of mine, we were discussing him passing. And I said, sometimes I said, when people pass away, people on earth look at it as a failure, but it's not necessarily a failure. It can be looked at that person needed to transition or pass or leave the earthly plane in order for them to heal and to go to the next phase in their existence. So that's an example of like looking at something like death, which is, I mean, it's a hard thing. I mean, we all have dealt with it. It's not an easy thing. It's a part of life, but it's something that, can be really challenging for us to deal with. And that's just an example of like looking at it in another way. I'm not saying it's easy. And I'm, like I said, I'm a work in progress,
Yeah.
but it is an example of how you can look at that in a different way.
I have to say, passing away for me, it's not a failure. It's the beginning of a new phase.
Yeah.
Like, I was last week, I became a second time grandmother.
Congratulations!
And I was just thinking, the fact of being born, it's as well as a next stage from being inside the mother to coming outside. It is a new beginning. And I think that death is a new beginning too. And, we just get out of this, we go to the next phase.
Well, I'm gonna have to go. You all, love, peace, and blessings. Thank the audience I thank you all for tuning in, and hopefully I'll see you next week. I know. Call me short
Bye,
and sweet
Raji.
today. I'm short and I'm sweet. Although I'm a big trans woman. Love to all of you.
Thank you. Poppy.
I just love being with you all. You help me so much. And that reminded Raji used the term spinning the thoughts. And there's another term that goes with that. It's called reframing. And for example, if your self-talk is saying, I'll never be long, you need to reframe that to, I'm learning how to belong. And it's just that little shift there from that absolute I'll never to no, I'm really learning. I'm farther along down that path than I was. And so reframing those thoughts from kind of the absolute negativity we might put there into something more positive, like, no, I'm learning how to do this. I'm making progress, and reframing it. Another thing is community, because when you have a circle of friends and you develop that, they can help you see a lot of things and help you work on it. One of the biggest secrets I ever learned, and I think I'm so thankful that I was in my 20s when I learned this, was how to conduct projects on a grand scale, like a national scale, that accomplish big things. And it was a real simple formula. It was invite everyone who cares to work on what's possible.
Mm.
And I was working with people that have very, very serious disabilities. And I was developing technologies that were going to redefine the human potential. And so inviting the people who care to work on what's possible made all the difference in the world, because we may not have everything, we may not have the biggest budget in the world. What do we have? What's possible? So that's one thing that community does. You put yourself in a group who cares. And when you get together, you talk about what's possible with where you are, what's in your community. And that's really huge. And then the other thing I was just thinking about is just working through that. And real quickly, I just want to mention that one of the things I've struggled with is, and it's just a result of being a survivor of conversion therapy, was the idea that I don't deserve to be happy. People like me don't deserve to be happy. That's one of those prisons that I put myself in for a long time. And so it's like, where did that come from? How do I get out of there? And I just want to mention to people who did have a whole lot of that kind of religious trauma, that one of the things that I did was get involved with documentary filmmakers. And on Amazon and Apple TV, you can watch two of my documentaries now. One of them is called Conversion from 2024. And it's all exposing conversion therapy for what it is. And that's a big part of what I do now, because that's harmful to so many people. The other one is called 1946, the mistranslation that shifted culture. All you got to remember is 1946. When you put in those four numbers, it'll pop up. So on Amazon or Apple TV, go search out those movies, because we put a whole lot of heart and soul and money and effort into making those. They turned out really well. There, people all over the world are watching them now on Amazon and Apple TV. And those are ways where I had to work my way through all of this crap that had been put into me. And I want to be sure to mention that to people, that there are a lot of really good tools out there if part of the cage that you live in is caused by religious trauma and toxic theology. So that's just one of the things that's helped me a lot. Back to you, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are important things. But when I was listening to this and you're talking about, um, freedom of thought and learning about the freedom of thought, there is one point which came actually to my mind, and it was partly of my life. Um, I spent a long time in the beginning that people were kind of telling me what to do, so no freedom of thought. And then I spent a hell of a lot of time trying to understand what my thoughts were and not what the other people actually told me to think, And I'm not the only one. So, it's like that, life. But be
Mhm.
yourself. That is the most important thing, because freedom of thought is being yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Really.
with those, I think our time is more or less over. I just go around for a very fast uh, round. So, Jimmy, would you like to go first?
Sure. In closing, I'd like to say be careful of what you consume. And I'm not talking about food, what we expose ourselves to, people you associate with. You never see an eagle hang out with chickens.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to close with this. The conscious mind plants the seed. The subconscious mind is where the seed grows.
Yes.
Ella.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
What are your
Um,
your last words?
I was thinking too that one of the themes that we just cannot help but come back to throughout all of these shows is gratitude. And the reason that is so important when it comes to escaping this thought prison that you've put yourself in is gratitude gets you to stop focusing on what's wrong and start looking at what's possible. And that makes all the difference in the world. And so that's another thing I would really encourage people to do, is to start practicing gratitude and quit thinking about what's wrong and think about what's possible. And then the only other thing has to do with our bodies and grounding and breathing and just being present, because our cage is made of stuff that happened in the past or fear over something that's going to happen in the future. And all of that, none of that stuff is real. Right now, the present, that's what's real. And, take your shoes off, put your feet on the ground, breathe, return to now. And things get a lot clearer more quickly. So back to you, Ella.
Okay, with those words, and thank you very much for watching today. We'll be back next week. I was supposed to go for a trip. I'm not going because I've got a cold, or I'm recovering from the cold. So anyway, but I will be here next week, and I'll love you all. And thank you very much for subscribing. Keep on subscribing, and namaste. Bye, everybody. Bye.
Namaste.